One of the most common things we use today is password. What is a password? If you really think about it, password is just a piece of code that you need to remember and helps you to verify that you are who you say you are. We use passwords today to log into the computer, the phone, the web, literally everywhere. And managing and remembering passwords can be hard. At least it's hard, really hard for me. But if I say that you can use your own voice as a login method, similar to how fingerprint reader works on your phone to unlock the phone, or how face unlock works on your phone to unlock the phone. And similar to fingerprints and face, each and every person has their own voice print. If you think about what is happening today in the world right now, the remote work has become a necessity. And with that, remote authentication. Just think about it. Be able to authenticate with voice via the phone. Let's say you need to talk to your bank manager and they need to verify who you are. And you just speak a phrase and ta-da, they know you are you. And if we go a bit, like my natural state is I like to be lazy. And I like to do stuff that takes less effort. But I feel like typing takes a lot more effort than talking. So don't type your passwords, speak them. Hi everyone, my name is Ishan Jain. I'm a developer by trade. The one type that loves to work in the vampire time zone. And unfortunately, I do also have a day job. So vampire hours does not really work for me. I'm a cloud solution architect at Microsoft. My day job involves helping my customers with their cloud journey. At Microsoft, I have worked with multiple workloads, but today I'm focusing mainly on data and AI space. I'm also an open source champion, advocate, evangelist, both within the Microsoft and outside the company with the open source community at large. In the evening, I try to hack. It can be a simple CSS project or an advanced AI project. I'm not going to bore you with the details about what Microsoft is or what Azure is, because you probably know what Microsoft is and what Microsoft does. And you probably also know what Azure is. But just to keep it simple and to give a bit of reference, I will just summarize it to Azure is the cloud platform Microsoft offers, and Microsoft is the company that makes Windows and Office. Simple. However, I am going to talk about Azure Cognitive Services, and particularly about Azure Speech Recognition API. Today, Azure offers over 600 services, and a suite of these services is called Cognitive Services. Cognitive Services contains a set of AI services which are pre-built AI models by Microsoft, which you can consume by just a simple API. Some of these AI models are Speech API, Vision API, Search API, Language API, or Decision API. Microsoft also leverages these services internally in other Microsoft products. For example, if you ever used Cortana, it uses Speech API to actually translate what you're saying to text that Cortana can understand. Similarly, Bing uses Search API, or Bing Translate uses Language API. Under Speech API, you also have something called Speech Recognition API. Speech Recognition API is currently in preview, so I don't have the GA date yet, general availability date yet, but it's still a preview, but it works, as I'm going to demo later on. With the speech recognition, you can either verify your identity or identify a person. Today, I'm only going to talk about how to verify with this API. But once you understand how the API works, it's very simple how to consume the API. And identifying using this API is similar to verifying. And in the official documentation of the API, you also have sample codes for how to identify. So let's start with some flow, how it actually works. With a speech recognition API, firstly, you need to create something called a verification profile, which can be done by simply calling the create method. And the API will return a verification profile ID. Once you have created this profile, you will need to train the API with the voices of the person you want to recognize the profile with. The API requires at least 3 samples, 3 voice samples. You can train the API by uploading the training samples to the API by calling the enroll method. The API in return whether if it accepts a sample or not, and if it accepts a sample, if it also say how many more tries you need to do. And once you have enrolled successfully a profile, which is, as I said before, done by uploading 3 different voice samples, preferably of the same person, so that you can actually identify them. And now, once that is done, you can use new samples to verify or authenticate. You can upload the verification sample to the verify method, and the API will return whether it accepts the sample or if it rejects. And it will also say with how much confidence it does so. Let's jump to the demo. This is a sample application I created to test the API. The application is written in C# and JavaScript, but you can write in any language. It's just a REST API, so you can use any language that can handle a REST. I decided to use the default ASP.NET Core application template, so there's nothing fancy into it. There's nothing special into this project. As you can see, I am using Visual Studio and Visual Studio 2019 Preview. That's not necessary even for this application, just that's the one I had currently installed. Also, I'm going to utilize the new Media API built into the browser to record sounds from my microphone. So let's just start the application. I think the best way is to actually look at the users to start with. As I told before, the API will return when you create a new user or new profile in the API, it will return a verification profile ID. But that's the only thing it will actually store about the profile. So if you want to have any other attributes like I'm using here, email or username, you will have to have a separate database to store that. And that's what I'm using. I'm using a separate MS SQL database to store these 2 attributes. So let's start with create a new user. So now we have created a new user. So if we look at details, you can see we have the verification profile ID, but also how many times we have tried to enroll, how many times we still need to enroll to actually be able to use this profile, and what's the enrollment status is right now. And also I'm using US English just as a default language. There are going to be several other languages supported in the future, but for now it's only US English. So let's try enrolling this user. Currently there are only 10 phrases which can be used to enroll a user. So I'm going to choose phrase number 8. My password is not your business, and try to enroll the user with that. So let's start. My password is not your business. So we successfully enrolled one time, and we still have to do twice more. Let's do it once more. My password is none of your business. If you notice, I did not say exact phrase. It's a variation, but it is still validated a phrase. And we only have one sample left. Let's try a different phrase just to see what happens. Houston, we have had a problem. And as we actually started enrolling with phrase number 8, and now I enroll with, and I try to use phrase number 2, it will not allow it anymore. So let's complete the enrollment and see what happens. My password is none of business. And I misspoke. So let's do it again. My password is not your business. And there we go. And as it says, it's enrolled now. So if we go back to users, and look at details for user 4, and we say we tried to enroll it 3 times, none remaining, and it's now enrolled. Now if we similarly do something with it for, let's say, user number 3, which have not been enrolled yet, so we see what we saw for user number 4 before. So 0 enrollments, 3 counts left, and it's still in enrolling state. So now that we have enrolled user number 4, so we can use it to actually verify it now. So if we go to home and select user 4 and try to authenticate, my password is none of business. And even though I did not say the exact phrase, it still has a high confidence and accepts the phrase. And this user has been verified. So if I had built a full-on login authentication and all that, so I would have gone to a user area now. But let's try another phrase. I'm going to make him an offer he cannot refuse. And it rejected it, because obviously this is not a password or a phrase. And let's do user number 1 and try to authenticate it. Because I didn't say anything, it rejected. I'm going to make him an offer he cannot refuse. And it accepted that. But if I use user number 4's phrase, my password is none of your business, it rejected it. And I did misspoke, so let's try it again. My password is not your business. And it rejected again with high confidence. Now let's take a look at how I actually created the backend code for this. Let's stop this. And I have divided the project into, or the solution into two projects. One is the web project, speech verification, and one is a wrapper API for the API. So it has two services and another wrapper for your bog standard HTTP client. And this is just so that I don't need to write the base address, the accepting header, the API key, and the API prefix each and every time I want to make a call. I just implemented three methods: post, get, and delete. That's what the API is using currently. And if we look at the profile services, I'm using the API client, and it actually makes calls much cleaner now. And I implemented, as per documentation, create, enroll, get all, and delete. If we look at enroll, as you can see, we are receiving an audio file, and then we are actually sending the audio file as multi-part form data in the post request. And if we go to verification service, it's a similar story here. The verify is very similar to how the enroll is written in the profile service. And then we have the web project, which is your bog standard ASP.NET Core project. Nothing fancy, nothing special to it. The only thing I wrote was couple of methods and a new user controller. As you saw, the user index page where it listed all the users, where we could create the users, we could see the details, and the enroll page. If we go in there, so it's just bog standard, nothing special, utilizing the service. It is, in this case, the profile service. And if you go to home controller, again, nothing special. It is actually very basic, but it is covered from the beginning. So these are the only changes where I actually make, okay, you're going to verify it by uploading a file. That's it. In the words of Porky the Pig, that's all, folks. That's all I had to show. And if you want to get hold of the sample code, it's hosted on GitHub. If you want to look at the documentation, the links are in the presentation. And if you want to contact me or get in touch with me, you have my blog or LinkedIn profile here. Thank you.